Everybody knows that the entire AEW roster is part of the unofficial Tony Khan Kiss My Ass Club, but I think Chris Jericho might be the number one member. Welcome back, guys, to Fog Wrestling, and Chris Jericho has came out. He's gave his opinion on Tony Khan and his little meltdown on Twitter and social media over the past week, and of course, Chris Jericho has come to Tony Khan's defence. Now, you might say Chris Jericho is a company man. You might say that Chris Jericho always defends the company that employs him, but that's not the Chris Jericho I remember. And I'm actually saying this as a massive fan of Chris Jericho. He is undoubtedly one of my favourite wrestlers of all time. Easily in the top 10, probably top 5 to be fair. Maybe even make a case for him being third in my all-time favourite list. But this is a guy that I used to respect, not just because of what he did in the ring and the guy's personality and his promo work, but also because he didn't take any shit. He stood up for what was right. Even the older he got, when he came back to wrestling, the whole thing with Randy Orton, remember he lost his shit over that. He didn't like Randy Orton getting brutally busted open by Brock Lesnar. He was ready to fight Brock Lesnar backstage. He was cracking up at Brock Lesnar. Another one of my favourite Chris Jericho moments was probably the story when McMahon was criticising the entire Raw roster. I believe it was around 2009. He wanted them to dress more like NWA stars. He says that they don't look the part. They don't look like actual stars. They're not coming, dressed to the arena, suit it and boot it. And Chris Jericho, in front of the entire roster, when McMahon was lecturing him, turned around to McMahon and says, well, why don't you pay us like NBA stars? And I thought that was Chris Jericho, at his absolute best, acknowledging here that, well, here, if you want us to be NBA stars, then why not pay us like NBA stars? But Chris Jericho seems to be gone, and the one we've got now in AEW is never going to say anything controversial. He's never going to really give his opinion and tell Tony Khan what he thinks. He's just going to tell Tony Khan what he thinks Tony Khan wants to hear. And in my opinion, that's very sad coming from Chris Jericho, because that's not the Chris Jericho that I knew. But he did respond to, obviously, Tony Khan's little meltdown, or should I say big meltdown, last week, where Tony Khan was taking shots at Undertaker, Cena, McMahon, HBK, Triple H. And this is what Chris Jericho had to say based on Tony Khan's social media activity. Quote, I learned years ago that bosses are going to be bosses and billionaires are going to be billionaires. I've been working for billionaires for 25 years. At this point, you can't control Tony Khan. He's going to do what he wants to do, and God bless him. He created this company. He runs this company. He also grew up in the social media era. I'm not going to tell him, take your phone away because he's my boss. Say what you want, whatever. I think it'd be worse if I said that stuff, because I'm not the boss, Tony Khan owns AEW. And he can do pretty much what he wants. I'm not going to tell him no. End of quote. And that is the problem. No one is going to tell Tony Khan no. No one else is going to stick up to Tony Khan and give their side of offence or give their, opinion on matters. No one's going to do that. No one's going to criticise Tony Khan. No one is going to challenge Tony Khan. They're just going to let this guy do what they want because they want their comfortable little paycheck in AEW, and it's quite clear listening to that Jericho doesn't agree with what Tony Khan done. You can tell Jericho thinks that Tony Khan was being pathetic, but he won't come out and say it. He can't come out and say it. He doesn't want to come out and say it. He just wants to protect his boss, and this is not the Chris Jericho that I know. He says that nobody's going to tell him, and he's not going to tell him because he's his boss. So fucking what? When did that stop Jericho from back in the day? Do you think Jericho listened and agreed and obeyed everything McMahon said? Absolutely not. But now we've got an older Chris Jericho who looks like he's just been comfortable and he just wants to settle and he just wants to get paid. And it's sad because Tony Khan is a moron. Maybe if more people called out fucking Tony Khan. You look at all the actual, wrestling legends in AEW with actual experience. There's no reason that company should be as bad as it is. You look at a lot of things AEW do, and a lot of that shit shouldn't fly. A lot of that shit shouldn't happen. People like Chris Jericho should be standing up to the likes of Tony Khan, should be standing up to the likes of the EVPs that are little fucking spoilt children brats, but we don't get that. We just get Jericho. He's just there. He's just happy to get a paycheck, I guarantee you Jericho would be criticising McMahon back in the day. If McMahon was doing shit like this, Jericho would be calling him out. And maybe not publicly, but definitely in private. He's done it before. Why wouldn't he do it again? You know, it's just sad. Tony Khan can do what he wants. And also, Jericho mentioned the fact that Tony Khan is a billionaire. He's been working with billionaires for 25 years. The difference is, Vince McMahon is a self-made billionaire. Did he get a head start? Did he get, an advantage because of his dad? Yes. But McMahon took a small fraction of what he's worth now, and he made it into what he's worth, okay? McMahon took a small amount of money. I'm not saying what he got was small, but he took a small amount of money compared to billionaire status, and he transformed that. He made wrestling this massive fucking brand, right? Undeniable. Wrestling back in the day, yeah, it was popular. Yeah, some territories had, like, rabid fan bases, but he made it into a global, worldwide phenomenon. No one but McMahon has got close to doing that with wrestling. So McMahon, yeah, he got a little bit of a hit. What McMahon done, it's no different from like getting a little loan from the bank and investing it and becoming a billionaire. That's essentially what McMahon done. Tony Khan's not done that. Tony Khan has been using his daddy's money. Jericho says he created this company, he runs it. He created this company with his dad's money, okay? It's bullshit. Tony Khan didn't do anything special. He's never done anything special. He was just lucky to be born into the McMahon family. People can say what they want about Shane McMahon and he's born with a silver spoon in his mouth. But at least Shane McMahon actually went out and he's done things away from WWE. Everything that Tony Khan's done has been with his dad and with his dad's money. The guy's a spoiled child, and you can tell that with the way that he gets on. Last week, him calling out WWE and bashing Cena and Taker because of the ratings, that was probably one of the most pathetic things I've ever seen, especially considering that he had all his big guns. Edge recently signed Edge, a legend for WWE. He signed him, had him on the Dynamite, and Edge got 600k. You didn't seem... Could you imagine if Vince McMahon came out and said on Twitter, "Oh, look at this, Edge, for the first time ever, I'll get on like a national programming TV, a national network, got under 1 million. Could you imagine McMahon? McMahon could have easily come out and said the same thing about Edge, but he didn't because he's not a pathetic bastard. So yeah, I mean, McMahon, the difference between McMahon and... You can't even compare McMahon and Tony Khan. You really can't, guys. He is the can't. He is the can't man. He can't do anything. The guy fucking sucks. And it's a shame because people say all the time that you complain about AEW and that you don't want an alternative. I do. I would like an alternative. I liked when TNA was doing good as a strong alternative number 2. And I would like AEW to be a strong alternative number 2. But it sucks. That's the sad fact of reality. AEW sucks. And it doesn't even get close to prime TNA. So, yeah. Anyway, hopefully maybe we'll get another good wrestling company one day that isn't WWE, but honestly, guys, I can't see it. I mean, I think for a company to be good, probably WWE is going to need to be good, and right now, WWE absolutely sucks. So, yeah, we'll see what happens, but I'll catch you in the next one, guys. Chris Jericho just kissing ass as per usual. Peace.